Welcome to In the Zone. I am the guy with the name on the screen, Craig Zimmerman. Thank you to Paul Dingeman in the booth running the controls there. With us today, number 49, we've got a local guy that everybody knows, Mr. Dave Shorkey. Welcome, Dave.
Well, thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me. Number 49, that's the year I was born.
Is that right? There we go. Better play that lottery number tonight.
There we go.
So, Dave, we start these all out, like I said earlier, pretty basic and simple. We know where you were born and raised, but maybe some of our viewers don't know. So go ahead and tell us.
Well, I'm an old Marine City boy. And, our family grew up in a frame home on William Street till I was about 11 or 12, and then we moved up to the northern end of Marine City on Westminster, and I think, as with a lot of Marine City people, my mother was there until the day she passed. But it was a lot of fun back in the. You know, we're all baby boomers, and Marine City was a hopping town, and it was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed it. Yeah,
like last week I interviewed Todd May, and we talked about Luke's, and we had to stop and explain to people that didn't know where Luke's was. Luke's is today the dry dock, so
exactly.
Those things, because you had to hang out at Luke's back in the day.
Well, we did.
Penny candy, right?
I mean, we'd go up. There was a Gulf gas station where we'd fill up our bike tires or our tubes to float down the river, and I really aged myself. I think a bottle of a Pepsi or Coke was a nickel, and then a 2-cent deposit on the bottle.
Yeah. So you went to Holy Cross.
Correct. Yeah. At Holy Cross, actually, kindergarten went to Washington Elementary the first year it was open.
Okay.
And then after that, Holy Cross Elementary and Holy Cross High School, all the way through. We had the IHM nuns, and it was fun. There were, it didn't have as many offerings as Marine City High did, but everybody seemed to manage.
And back in that day too, it was different in the sense that from growing up in town, the neighborhoods were all the people, and some kids went to Holy Cross, some kids went to Marine City, but at the end of the day at 3:30, you all came together to play baseball in the same field.
Exactly. I mean, and it was, it seemed like a lot of my cousins and friends went to the public school, and you're right, it was the same thing. When you'd come home from school back in that day, you'd hang your school pants on a hook, put your jeans on, and there were so many kids in the neighborhood. There was always, no matter what season it was, there was always somebody to play ball or do something with.
So give us a little bit background of your mother, father, and siblings.
Okay. Actually, my dad was an officer on the lake freighters.
Okay.
He went, I think, out to sail right around the time of the Depression.
Okay.
And I think a lot of guys from Marine City did. I think most of them gravitated back to home and, found other jobs, but he stayed on the lakes and sailed, and it was kind of it's different then than it is now, because he would pack his sea bag and he'd leave, probably around the middle of March, and he would come back again, sometime after Thanksgiving, early December. But his boat would go by Marine City quite a bit.
You're waving, right?
With the communications being a little different then, his boat had a signal they would blow, and you didn't get a phone call that he was coming. If you heard the signal, or if we had friends upriver or downriver, would call and say his boat's coming by, and you go down the shore and wave to your dad. And
now, did you just run down to Westminster?
Yeah,
the corner
Westminster, or else. Sometimes it was a little embarrassing. At Holy Cross, the boat would come by, and the nuns would say, "Go out and wave to your dad." And one time he scolded me for my report card as he was going by.
Never heard that one.
It was public shaming.
Yeah. Now, do you remember what ships he was on?
He was on a lot of he sailed for Pittsburgh U.S. Steel, and like the Benjamin Fairless, the Zeising, Robert Stanley. I think each year he almost changed a boat every year. It was kind of like a pecking order.
Sure.
Boats were longer, were newer, and they would assign you according to your seniority on what boat you'd be on.
Well, and back then they had 100 boats, I think.
At one time I have a book about it, and it was 1963, and they showed where all of the boats were at they picked like 2 o'clock. July 15th.
Where they
and
were?
There were 70 Pittsburgh boats throughout the Great Lakes, and you just think of the logistics of paychecks, feeding people, getting their supplies. I mean, it's
monumental.
It's interesting that and actually the first time I ever got on his boat, I would go on a trip as a young kid, was downtown St. Clair. St. Clair had a ferry then, and I was about 5 years old, and it was downbound, and the ferry went out, and they put a life jacket on me, a rope around my armpits, and
here you go.
Up you go.
Okay.
So that was
That had to
fun.
be a cool, eye-opening experience.
I did that every summer till I was about 15. You're fearless when you're 5,
Right.
7,
Yeah.
8. When you're 15, and they want you to go off the
Oh,
freighter
boy.
and down to this little boat. It's a little,
Yeah.
a little different.
I talk about that because growing up as well myself and watching it, you didn't think about it as a kid, but back then, a Great Lakes freighter was probably 70 feet wide by 550, 600 max.
Yep.
So that's why they had 75 ships. But, back in the mid-70s, when they started getting, 750, 850, and then 1,000-footers, a 1,000-footer probably displaced 10 old freighters.
And the other thing, my dad was on the front end of the boat, but there were, I think they had 16 or 17 people work the front end and the same number on the back end.
Right.
So there were a lot of people on those boats.
Yes.
And a lot to feed and keep track of.
Well, and I think this whole River District area, back in those days, all of them had sailors.
Yeah,
In St. Clair, Marine City, Algonac, there was all a half a dozen or a good couple handfuls of people that were sailors.
Exactly.
Yeah. So your father was on the freighters.
Yeah.
Your mother.
My mom, she was a homemaker, and she had to rule.
Oh yeah.
When you're the only one home, and
Yeah.
I have an older brother and sister, and my brother and I had a tendency to run a little wild, so she was a good disciplinarian.
Right.
But I tell you, she was a great lady. She had a great personality. There were 9 in her family, so we had lots of cousins
Sure.
and people visiting all the time, and it, just growing up, and you'd come home from school, your mother, a lot of things that are different then
today.
than it is now, but she was a great lady, and after my dad passed away pretty young, he was 55, so she lived another 30 plus years in her house, and she went and worked at the hospital until I think she was in her early 70s, and she was a good gal, always smart, just kind of slowed down a little bit, and but she had a nice life.
Oh, and I can remember working at the meat market, waiting on your mother,
Yeah.
and it's like back in those days, you somewhat knew what different people were going to walk in and get, because every week it was sort of the same thing. Give me a ring of bologna and give me 3 pounds of hamburger, and
Exactly.
can you give me that in 1 pound packages?
Yeah.
And you knew what was going on there. So, and then you're the youngest of 3.
Correct.
Okay.
My oldest sister, Mary, she, same thing, grew up in Marine City. She married a gentleman by the name of Ken Lau, and he's still with us. Mary passed away about 1.5 years ago, and she worked at the State Farm Agent for years.
A lot of years for
And,
Ted.
What's always, nowadays, when you lose someone, something will happen during the day, and I think, boy, I can't connect the dots, but if I could call my sister,
She was all over it.
She could put everything together,
Yes.
so you lose kind of some of your reference
Yes.
points. And then my brother Tom, I think a lot of people were familiar with him. He did similar thing for cable TV that you're doing now, Craig, and he was superintendent for a number of years. He was principal.
He was my principal.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think even a lot of people realize that when he became principal of Marine City High, I think he was 27 years old.
I was going to say he wasn't very right.
And he said, it was kind of nice in those days because they didn't have sports because of funding. They didn't have buses. He said at 3:30 you locked the door and went home.
Yeah, exactly.
But he was a good guy, good friend. Through all the years, we were best man in each other's wedding, and his life, he had a great life. It was cut short. He ended up with some fast-moving brain cancer, and he passed away 3 weeks after my sister did. So that was a tough month, and but he has a great legacy. But he is a great guy, and he's personable, and he knew everybody. I think he liked going to Neiman's more than anybody. Just even if he didn't need
3 hours, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He up and down the aisles. He'd visit with everybody.
Well, the story I have about Mr. Shorkey was I was 16 or 17 because I remember I had my license, and back in the day when I went and bought a car from Andy Terhune, and and took care of the car, like, because I was a car fanatic, and I shined it up, and it was polished, and it was clean, and I go to high school, and I'm like, I'm not parking in that parking lot. I'm parking over there. But the teachers, well, I got called out for parking in the teacher's parking lot. Got hauled into Mr. Shorkey's office, and Mr. Shorkey stood across from me, and he goes, well, Mr. Zimmerman, he says, I got to do, we got to do something here. and my claim on it was, well, my car's as nice as the teacher's cars. And he says, I know it is, but he says, you do it once more, I might have to give you half a day off.
Well, so there you go.
And being a local guy, as he was, everybody knew everybody. He's like, okay, get out of here.
Yeah.
So, all good. So you went to Holy Cross. Obviously, you probably have many friendships still to this day.
Oh, and it's I think with most people, I think a lot of your lifelong friendships you make during your formative years and in school. And, and Holy Cross is, that's obviously in the Cardinal Mooney building now. But we probably had, maybe 52, 55 kids in our class. And it was different then. I think there were 5 girls got married the summer after they graduated.
Sure.
I say that to the kids who work for me at the Harbor.
Oh, they can't even believe it.
I said, can you imagine you're graduating? Could you imagine?
Get married next week.
And But it was a good education, and we enjoyed it. But in senior year, most of us went over to Marine City High for one class. So, and that was kind of a different time there too, because that was at modular scheduling, and there are a lot of people roaming the halls all the time. I think for an administrator, that was probably a nightmare, I would think. But Holy Cross was a good place.
Yeah, good place. Did you go to college a little bit after?
I did. I think everybody went to college at that time because the draft for Vietnam was on. And just a little story with that. My dad at one time, he said, the Edison was pretty new, and they also helped fund people East China School District if they were going to go to community college. My dad said to me, he said, well, where do you want to go to college? I said, I want to go to that maritime school up in Traverse City. And he says, like heck you are, you're going to Port Huron.
Right.
So he asked you, but he knew where you were going to go. And I went there for a couple of years, and then it just, I liked school. I moved to Grand Rapids. I went to Grand Valley for a while, but I never finished.
Okay.
So,
and then what kind of career did you have out of college?
well, what I did is I was always in sales. I took a job in Grand Rapids working for this company called Herff Jones. I supplied schools with graduation products.
Okay, yeah.
And I was with them for about 6 years over there. I really liked that side of the state, but it was a little bit confining on what I wanted to do. So I moved back to the east side of the state and worked for a group out of Royal Oak. And then I eventually split off by myself, and I stayed in the same business. I had for a long time, for about 30 years, I had an office in Lathrop Village, which is a little community surrounded by Southfield. And I also, for a number of years, had an office in Jackson and supplied schools throughout the Metro Detroit area, and then also out of the Jackson office. We did kind of the southern tier down towards Ann Arbor, down towards Monroe. And
sure.
It, like anything, it was, after a number of years, it was time to hang it up. There was a fellow that worked for me that I turned some of that over to, and I moved back up to this area at that time. That was probably around 97 or so.
Yep.
And
so you did the whole graduation, stationery.
I mean, it involved
rings.
Over the year. It was rings at the beginning. It was stationery, cap and gown, diplomas. It really involved we did a lot of championship rings.
Sure.
Actually, when I was in Grand Rapids, I think it was '78, Michigan State won the Big Ten football title, but they couldn't go to the Rose Bowl because they were on probation. So we made this championship ring for Michigan State football, and it was really a good-looking ring. And then that winter, they won the NCAA championship in basketball. That was Magic Johnson.
Yep.
So Magic and I and the assistant coach, Dave Harshman, had to sit down and design a championship ring for that team, which we made for him. And then also that spring, Danny Litweiler was the baseball coach. They won the Big Ten championship, so it was kind of nice in that one
You got a whole
academic
site there.
year, yeah, they it was really great for Michigan State, and it was great for me too.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
Repeat business with the
repeat
same
business.
school, just doing a different type of ring.
And I think I always think back, the kicker was Morton Anderson for
Yep,
Michigan
yep.
State, and I had a sample ring, and Jim LeBoon, whenever he'd see that, he'd say, "Can I have that ring? Can I buy that ring?" And I don't know whatever happened to it, but I may have given it to him, but I really don't even remember.
I'll have to
But
ask Jesse next
yeah,
time I see
there you
Jesse.
go.
See if there's a Morton Anderson.
ring
ring.
around somewhere.
Okay.
So anyways, then since I've been back here and retired, I don't know how anybody can just retire.
Yep.
I like to play golf, I fish a little bit, but
Not every day.
I don't want to do it every day.
Yeah.
So I have found different things to do. My wife's a flight attendant with Delta Airlines, and she said, well, they need some help at the airport. So I would go down 2 days a week for a 12-hour shift, and I really enjoyed it, but it just...
Too far, right?
After doing that for a year and a
Yeah.
half, it was just too far. But it was, there were just a lot of situations you'd get into that were interesting.
Right.
I mean, there was fog in New York, so all the international planes came into Detroit, and it was trying to sort
Schedule.
everybody out, or they cancel a flight. I'd have to try and rebook everybody, and you talk about being under pressure.
Oh, yeah.
But it was enjoyable too. I enjoyed that. So then, since being back here, something a little I keep busy. I worked at Pine Shores for the city of St. Clair, and then the St. Clair Boat Harbor. There was a gal that was there, and for some reason or another she left, but it was in the middle of the summer, so I went over to do the bank deposit and order the fuel, and said, I don't want this job. That
I'll
was,
help you, but...
that was 6 years ago.
Okay.
So that's currently what I'm
So
doing.
tell us about, everybody knows the boat harbor, but they don't know what the boat harbor consists of. How many slips are there? Let's talk about that.
And I had somebody just this weekend, a guy that they were up fishing from somewhere, and he says, I had no idea this was here,
Right.
because they drive by and we're by the Cargill plant, and we're kind of set back, but the St. Clair Boat Harbor, it's named after Charles Moore, who
Yep.
was the president of Diamond Crystal at the time, and they donated some of the property, and they moved some boathouses that were there to the other side of the river. But we have 120 slips, and per our agreement with the DNR, half of those we can use for seasonal boating, and then the other half we have available for transients.
Okay.
And they can come in and stay up to a week, and it's really busy.
Okay. So your season generally, I'm going to say, generally starts Memorial Day weekend for better...
Technically, we're open from April 1st to October 15th, but it's Memorial Day, it starts, and it goes right through the end of September. There's so many boat clubs that want to have a rendezvous or
After
come
the
to
holiday.
St. Clair. And actually, from Memorial Day now through the end of September, there's very few slips that are available on a
Okay.
weekend. It's just St. Clair's become a real destination. It's, people, I think during the pandemic, you couldn't there were no weddings, there were no
Sure.
graduations, but you could boat.
Get on your boat, right.
And
Well, and it's only, we're only like from Metro Detroit. I mean,
Exactly.
From, let's say, the Ambassador Bridge, it's probably, 2.5 hour boat ride, 3 hours maybe.
Probably not even that,
Yeah,
I bet.
right.
And, a lot of our people come from, just like St. Clair. They want to get away for a weekend. And especially now that fuel prices have gone up the past few years, people aren't going as much on those big trips
Sure.
up to Mackinac, but they want to get away for a weekend, and
Yeah.
they'll come and see us. There's always entertainment,
Yep.
music going on. It's
Well, it's so walkable too.
It's-
I mean,
it's-
you don't need a car if you're in St. Clair because you can walk across the bridge and
Correct.
be at any restaurant.
and we have a shuttle bus, which
Yep.
somebody wants to go up if they have a tea time at the golf club or they want to go to the River Crab. Normally, we limit that inside the city of St. Clair, but we do go up as far as
Sure.
the River Crab. So a lot of people use that. We also have 9 camping spots.
Yep. Okay.
It's those become popular. Those are probably booked for every weekend
Okay.
now. And there's different events during the year. It's the boat race is the big one.
Yep.
And then at the harbor, we always have our own party. It's called the Mardi Gras. It's the first Saturday in August. The Gobies come, we get the stage from the county. Everything's free. It's bring your lawn chair, your cooler. It's a great night of entertainment. Sometimes we'll have a food truck or a vendor. Last year, Murphy's donated hot dogs and stuff, so the staff cooked them up, and we just had a donation and had the Riley Gleason Foundation was the recipient of our the proceeds from our Mardi Gras party. So it's, and the big boat clubs like North Channel Yacht Club, MacRae, they all come up for weekends, but there's a lot to do. And this year there's a new company in town that have e-bikes, and they're going to have rentals available at the harbor. So I think even for transient people, if they want to go a little further, head down towards Marine City or something, they would
take the bike path.
Yeah, take the bike path. They'll have an avenue to do that. And a couple other things at the harbor, we rent kayaks. We're just putting those in the water now, and it seemed like if people like kayaking, they buy their own. But if they want to try it out, or it's we have those. And our boat launch is a big deal. It's especially now with the fishing really picking up.
Right now it's probably nonstop as we speak.
Well, the guys, they've been chomping at the bit for the walleye to run, and we have a fish cleaning station there. It's it's like a giant garbage disposal, but it operates well. It's mechanical. Occasionally, every once in a while, something will go haywire with it. We got to close it for a couple days and fix it. But it can't run 24/7 with fish going down it. It has to get a little bit of a break.
Now, you handle the north wall as well?
That's correct. That's on the other side of the river, like across from Burger King. There's we have 400 foot of broadside parking there. We have 12 power stanchions, and that can be used for overnight parking. And some people like to use it during the day. That's fine. There's a fee to do that, but we also have floating docks just beyond that, 200 foot, that is free for 5 hours. So if somebody wants to come in and have lunch, they're welcome to tie up there. If they tie up on the north wall, unfortunately we charge them for that, but we use that for overnight docking too. And we're right in the middle of a project to have that improved. We've had an engineering study. We had a grant that covered part of that. We just got the final report on it, and it got submitted to the state of Michigan. And if they okay it, then it'll go to the federal people for a grant. But that's over $1 million project to improve the whole park, replacing some of the seawall there. It's quite a big project, but it's I think it'd be a good investment for the future.
Oh yeah. When you look at the longevity of it, I mean, I would think, seeing how things like marinas get done around the state, it's probably just a, rubber stamp that it'll happen.
It's a few hoops to jump through, but it's and it really, the marina is a fun place. I mean, we have 4 different pavilions. One has garage doors and heat, and people like that for graduation parties, or we have different groups will use it. Actually, Paul Dingeman's birthday party was there a couple of years ago. But they're open during the day too. I mean, we have like work crews. They'll go pick up their lunch somewhere and come and sit in one of those used picnic tables, and it's open to the public. Everybody's welcome to use that. It's nice, but I think sometimes it's a little intimidating to drive back in there and not real sure what's there.
What's available, what's not available.
Exactly. And we have gas, diesel, pump out facilities. We have washrooms that they each have about 5 showers in them. We had those completely redone last year, so we get a lot of comments from people that come that the condition of the facilities, and
super clean,
especially the restrooms they're in great shape.
So if somebody wanted to rent a boat well there, I'm assuming they go somehow on the city site, or?
Well, they can either go on the DNR site, or they can call us directly, and we can book them. We have a little more flexibility than if you're online through the DNR site.
Okay.
And, you know, our seasonal wells are full now, but we do get some turnover on that, and, you know, we have a waiting list and try and fill that accordingly. But it's, yeah, we welcome people to come
Okay.
in and use it.
I know I've got the phone number in my phone because I call to make sure they're open for gas when I come and get gas for the boat. But the phone number for the marina itself.
Is 810
Yep.
329 4125.
4125. Okay.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to rent a well or
Correct.
anything else
Yeah.
going on, I think we've covered most everything. I think it's a gem, one gem of St. Clair.
It really is. And, you know, I look at our sister city, Marine City, it'd be nice if they can get the olive out of the jar and get their, you know, marina stuff. I know
Right.
that they've been trying. Sometimes you only have so much you can work
Right.
with, but it really helps the city itself.
Oh,
You know,
it's an anchor. It
is.
Yeah.
You know, and people love to visit different places by boat.
Yep.
It's, you know, I had a couple this weekend. They were at a wedding in St. Clair Shores, but the reception was going to be at the St. Clair Inn. And they thought, boy, what a perfect opportunity. They went to the wedding, jumped in the boat, came up here. We have a shuttle bus. We
Yeah.
took them to the inn for the reception. And one other thing we have at the harbor, too, I'd like to get a little plug in for is St. Clair is one of the few places that has senior transportation.
Okay.
It's a free transportation for St. Clair residents. We have a shuttle van that if they have doctor's appointments or need to go to the grocery store, we'll take them in town and then or else also down to the hospital area. So they just call City Hall to schedule that, but it's a nice service.
Yeah.
You know, that's available, and we do that through the harbor.
Okay, that's cool. Any special any special events going on there at all?
Well, a couple things. There's the fishing tournament, which is local, which the Bodaf family runs. It's called the Marble Eye. That's coming up not this weekend, but the next. And that's a big deal. That we have tickets available. They have a lot of drawings. And
So it'll be like the third week of May?
yeah,
Okay.
the weekend prior to Memorial Day weekend. The art fair has been moved to August of this
Okay.
year. It used to be the end of June, but that's August. It's going to coincide with the Jazz Festival, which is
that's good.
yeah, like the third week of August. I think it's around the 18th or so. Our Mardi Gras party's the 4th. We'll put all this stuff on Facebook, and that has really become a real go-to event because you can bring your lawn chair. You're at the harbor. We have the stage. We have the best local band around, and we have some food, and there's beads flying around, and everybody has a good time.
Yeah, I mean, the Jazz Fest is a phenomenal event for free. I mean,
exactly.
I would say that I can't imagine many other spots. It gets Alexander Zonchek comes to town, brings his bands, and he fills it all up.
You can book 6 months in advance, and those weekends, almost to the day when they become available, people will book those slips for that particular weekend.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming in.
Well, good.
Number 49's in the books, Mr. Dave Shorkey from the Marina. If you have a guest that you want to promote, you got the number. Have him call me, and we'll get somebody in here. Thanks for coming, Dave.
You're welcome.
Have a great day. Yeah, thank you.